Meet Oh Wan-soo, a philanthropist and the director of the Now Foundation, which rescues young people from the wreckage of war and gives them opportunities for a brighter future. At the UN offices, after her presentation, Wan-soo receives disturbing news from a staff member. She is being threatened by terrorists due to her work with the foundation. Refusing to let fear ruin her plans, Wan-soo insists on continuing with her scheduled trip to a charity party she is holding in the Philippines, undeterred even by the news that her demanding mother-in-law, Chairwoman Park, will also be at the party. At the same time, we meet Seo Do-yoon, a man determined to find out the truth behind the death of his close friend and partner named Joo-hyuk. Eavesdropping on a conversation in the restroom of a Filipino hotel and casino, Do-yoon learns that the assassin who killed Joo-hyuk is in town and has another mission. Recognizing the Chinese gang, Do-yoon dresses up as a cleaner and manages to get into the room where a deal is happening and is shocked to see Kyung-ju, who he also used to work with, delivering money to the mob boss. Hearing Kyung-ju say that he is delivering money from the flower shop triggers a memory in Do-yoon. Back when Joo-hyuk got stabbed, Do-yoon, in the chaos of trying to save his friend, had heard the assassin mention a flower shop delivery. Later, Do-yoon prepares to head to the Makati district where he had heard the thugs in the bathroom say that the assassin will strike next. As fate would have it, Wan-soo, having arrived in Manila, is also headed there for a pre-party check when, walking out with the shop assistant, chaos erupts. A sniper opens fire, hitting her bodyguard and spraying Wan-soo with blood. After grabbing Wan-soo and leading her to safety, Do-yoon drives them both out of Manila. Having driven out of the city, Do-yoon finds a GPS tracker in their car and decides to take Wan-soo to his place. After cleaning themselves up, Do-yoon helps drive Wan-soo to the embassy, even giving a witness statement himself. When Kyung-ju, who works for Wan-soo's husband's Chaebol company's security team, sees who saved Wan-soo, Kyung-ju offers him a job at the Hwain Group. Still thinking about the interaction he saw in the hotel, Do-yoon accepts. The next day, continuing to plan the party, as though nothing went wrong, Wan-soo invites a young boy named Jun-hee and his mom, whom she seems to be close with, to the event. In a flashback, we see that Wan-soo had a son of her own, but something seemed to happen to him after or during a ski trip. Finally, at the charity party, as Wan-soo and Yong-guk, her husband, arrive, she is shocked to see none other than Do-yoon introduced as her new bodyguard. At the party, Wan-soo's mind drifts back to her past. It's 1990, and a young Wan-soo is watching as her mom, who works as a golf club caddy, is being abused by Chairwoman Park, aka her future mother-in-law. When one day her mom gets fired thanks to Chairwoman Park, Wan-soo becomes determined to excel in golf, a skill her mother taught her out of spite. As Wan-soo's golfing talent grows, she starts winning more and more international tournaments. However, instead of using Wan-soo's prize money to help lift her family out of poverty, Wan-soo's mother's gambling addiction drains her earnings. Eventually cutting ties, Wan-soo starts channeling her success into philanthropy, earning her the nickname Angel of Charity. In fact, it was during one of her charity missions in Africa that she met Yong-guk in the first place. They quickly got married afterward, despite Chairwoman Park looking down on her and giving Wan-soo a hard time. Back to the party, when Jun-hee comes up to Wan-soo looking for his mom, Wan-soo goes to the back rooms to find her, eventually walking in on her husband and Jun-hee's mom, named Tae-ra, hooking up. She's not surprised. Wan-soo has known this whole time that Tae-ra was her husband's mistress. She is frustrated, however, that they did it so publicly, not even locking the door behind themselves. Later that night, having found out that Wan-soo knows about her son's affair, Chairwoman Park meets with Wan-soo to warn her against divorcing Yong-guk. Wan-soo has no intention to divorce Yong-guk, but she does take the opportunity to remind her mother-in-law that if she did leave the family, then nothing would stop her from revealing how Chairwoman Park has been stealing from the foundation. Furious, Chairwoman Park vows to kill Wan-soo. At the end of the night, Wan-soo is drinking alone at the bar. Do-yoon helps the drunk Wan-soo back to her room, where she surprisingly asks him if he wants to sleep with her. Having helped her to her room, Do-yoon leaves like a gentleman. Back in Korea, having moved into the main house, sometimes referred to as the Grand Palace. After settling in, Do-yoon accidentally knocks over a picture of his late friend Joo-hyuk. Surprise! Behind the photo was a hidden SD stuck to the back of the frame. Looking incredulously at the SD card triggers Do-yoon's memory. Joo-hyuk's last words had been about a photograph. On the SD card, Doyun finds 3 videos of the chairman's body being taken outside the house. In a flashback, the chairman, who had been close to Wan-soo, asks her to stay married while he investigates something. What really happened to the chairman? Flashing back 2 years ago, Joo-hyuk and Do-yoon are assigned a covert operation by the police commissioner, tasked with investigating the finances and dealings of the president's close associates and reporting everything that they hear to the police commissioner. Joo-hyuk begins looking into what happened with the death of the Hwain Group's chairman. After Joo-hyuk's death, however, Do-yoon is suddenly denied permission to continue to look into the case. In the present, Do-yoon, more determined than ever to find out the truth, goes to Wan-soo and implies that the attack on her may not be a terror attack as she thinks. He asks her to stay by his side and let him protect her. Although Wan-soo is still suspicious of Do-yoon, her heart flutters. But she also has other issues to deal with. For one, it turns out that Jun-hee is Yong-guk's illegitimate son. After trying to suggest that Tae-ra and Jun-hee move to Switzerland, Tae-ra explains that she's not going anywhere. No, in fact, she's going to have another kid with Yong-guk, and plus, according to Tae-ra, Yong-guk only married Wan-soo to hide the fact that his actress girlfriend had OD'd in his bed. Shocked and privately hurt, Wan-soo tries to keep her head high even when she's taken aback to see that Chairwoman Park has arranged for Jun-hee to be a part of the family portrait, basically making it clear that she wants Jun-hee to replace Wan-soo's son, Chan-hee, who the public doesn't know has passed away. As the tension boils over, Wan-soo needs a break, and she and Do-yoon go to the beach. Later, they arrive at the family's vacation home and see that, inside, Yong-guk has been drinking. Annoyed and drunk, Yong-guk tries to force himself on Wan-soo, but hearing Wan-soo scream, Do-yoon steps in to protect her. The next morning, Tae-ra, having kicked some young girl out of Yong-guk's bed, continues to try to turn him against Wan-soo, but this time he cold shoulders her. At the same time, Do-yoon goes back to the videos that Joo-hyuk left him and spots something he missed before. The chairman didn't die at the Grand Palace. Why was the family hiding so many details about the chairman's death? Later that day, Yong-guk calls Do-yoon to his office, asking him how he dared interfere in their personal lives, referring of course to the night before. Apologizing, Do-yoon goes back to his room and turns on some CCTV footage that he'd managed to nab from the security room. Watching the copied videos, Do-yoon quickly comes across a clip of Yong-guk handing a large duffel bag of money to Kyung-ju. What could that money be for? Meanwhile, upstairs, a power struggle is brewing as Wan-soo orders the butler to give Jun-hee a different room, leaving Chan-hee's room untouched. The chairwoman knows that this is a challenge, so imagine Chairwoman Park's reaction when she finds all the media talking about Yong-guk's illegitimate son and affair, leaked secretly by Wan-soo and her brother, of course. As the scandal escalates, Tae-ra begs Wan-soo to stop the press, but Wan-soo is unyielding and unwilling to protect her husband's brazen mistress. The company's stock takes a nosedive, and Chairwoman Park scrambles to manage the fallout, trying her best to sabotage Wan-soo's plan to hold a press conference by dragging her to a meeting with a female minister. However, with Do-yoon's help, Wan-soo manages to sneak out to the press conference, where she boldly denies the rumors of Yong-guk's affair, instead claiming that Jun-hee is the late chairman's son, not Yong-guk's, shocking the whole family. Ironically, this move kind of also earns Yong-guk's respect. While Tae-ra is left fuming, she has just been made the mistress of a 70-year-old dead guy. Returning home after the press conference, Wan-soo faces a furious Chairwoman Park, who mocks her, while Wan-soo stands her ground, insisting that the Now Foundation is her legacy and must be kept clean. A few days later, tensions rise even more as Jun-hee and Tae-ra move into the Grand Palace, where Wan-soo pointedly refers to Tae-ra as a mistress and warns her to stay in her lane. Even the staff openly mock Tae-ra. After an uncomfortable dinner with Wan-soo, her brother and sister-in-law Yong-min and his wife Seo Do-yoon, Yong-guk, Chairwoman Park, and the Chinese investors that Yong-min needs to get their cosmetics brand into the Chinese market, Wan-soo tries to use the sway that she has over these powerful Chinese investors as a bargaining chip. However, the chairwoman one-ups her, sharing with Wan-soo how she locked her mother in a sketchy mental hospital and how her mother is on her last legs. Horrified and devastated, Wan-soo, having gone to the mental hospital, which is more like a prison, finds her mother on the brink of death in a hospital bed. In the last moments of her life, Wan-soo's mom manages to apologize to her daughter before passing away, leaving Wan-soo grief-stricken and set on avenging her, especially as Chairwoman Park refuses to let Wan-soo organize a funeral, instead forcing her to focus on a business deal with the Chinese investors. Without a funeral, Wan-soo and Doyun turn off their phones, remove the GPS trackers, and drive to Wan-soo's old home to say a final private goodbye to Wan-soo's mom before spreading her ashes in the ocean. Back at the house, the fact that Wan-soo and Doyun have gone off the grid causes chaos at the security headquarters, and Chairwoman Park has them followed by someone who takes incriminating photos of them as Doyun puts an arm around Wan-soo to comfort her. Having seen the photos, when they return to the Grand Palace, a jealous Yong-guk violently punches Doyun and fires him, although later the chairwoman forces him to take this back. Going to find him in his room, Wan-soo confides in Doyun, admitting that she needs him and wants to trust him fully. Asking him what evidence he has, Wan-soo watches as Doyun shows her the video that Ju-hyuk left behind. Just then, Kyung-ju walks in. With Wan-soo having left, Kyung-ju warns Doyun to be careful. In response, Doyun goes to the den of the Chinese triad that he saw at the Filipino hotel, hoping to provoke a reaction from Kyung-ju. It works, and Kyung-ju goes to confront Doyun, this time denying that he had anything to do with Ju Ha-yuk's death and explaining that the money that he gave to the gang is for Yong-guk's slush fund. As Doyun later retells to Wan-soo, Kyung-ju also explains that the reason the family hid the chairman's death was that he died while sleeping with his mistress. The next day, driving back after having dinner with the kids at a local home, suddenly, out of nowhere, Doyun spots something out of his rearview mirror. They're being chased by a cloud of explosive drones. Being attacked by a wave of drones, Doyun swerves and glides, just barely missing the bombs blowing up on each side of them. However, there is nothing he can do when one of the drones flies underneath their car and, blowing up, flips the car in the air. On the hill behind them, as Doyun, Wan-soo, and their other bodyguard lie in the broken car, we see So-dam, one of Hwain's female bodyguards, watching the scene. Has she been the assassin this whole time? Regaining consciousness, Doyun crawls out of the wreck of the car, pulling Wan-soo and the other bodyguard out as well. Carrying Wan-soo in his arms, the vehicle behind them blows up, shooting large and sharp pieces of shrapnel into his back. Rushed to the hospital, Doyun is forced to undergo emergency surgery, thankfully surviving. In the aftermath of the attack, Mr. Han, aka the family's lawyer and chairwoman, Park's right-hand man, finds out and tells Chairwoman Park about Yong-guk's dealings with the 8-star gang, the same gang that Doyun saw in Manila. As we learn, Chairwoman Park and Mr. Han have been in a relationship for years, dating back long before the chairman died. However, Chairwoman Park had, throughout all these years, continuously treated Mr. Han like staff that she could abuse as she liked. As a child, Yong-guk had once caught his mother and Mr. Han together, and the chairwoman hadn't even denied the young Yong-guk the reality. Did this childhood trauma have something to do with why Yong-guk is such a terrible husband? In the following few days, Doyun returns to the house and meets again with Wan-soo, seeing how he risked his life for her, carrying her out of the wreckage, even as shrapnel flew into him, cemented her trust and developed feelings for Doyun. Sneaking into Doyun's room, Wan-soo has a big favor. Wan-soo asks Doyun to steal the original Foundation ledgers from Mr. Han's room. Breaking into the room, Doyun manages to install a camera in the bedside clock, which captures the safe's code. While So-dam spots him in the room, luckily, by the time she tells Mr. Han about what she's seen, Doyun is already bringing Wan-soo the ledgers. Just then, however, prosecutors waltz in with an arrest warrant for Wan-soo's brother, Hyun-soo, on embezzlement charges. Shocked that her brother has just been arrested, Wan-soo holds Doyun's hand as he tries to comfort her. Yong-guk sees them and tries to call Mr. Han. However, Mr. Han dismisses Yong-guk's call and instead confronts Yong-min and Ji-yeon, accusing Yong-min of acting behind his back. Although Mr. Han doesn't spell it out, it was Yong-min who gave the prosecutors the tip that led them to arrest Hyun-soo. With Hyun-soo being held by the police, Mr. Han continues to scheme by lying to Chairwoman Park that it had been Doyun who had sent Hyun-soo to the prosecutors. As a result, Wan-soo is coerced into admitting that she had ordered Doyun to steal the ledgers. Insisting that it hadn't been Doyun who'd reported her bother, Wan-soo promises to give the ledgers back. Doyun, on the other hand, finds out that Chairwoman Park would be the one to take the fall if the truth about the ledgers came out. Why were the ledgers set up by Mr. Han to destroy Chairwoman Park? When Wan-soo contacts him, Doyun tells her about the ledgers, but grows worried when she asks for them back. Without the ledgers, what ammunition will Wan-soo have to fight back? He urges her to trust him, promising to protect her. The next morning, as news leaks of Wan-soo's brother's arrest, it sparks rumors about whether or not Wan-soo could have been involved, and whether she is getting a divorce. Mr. Han once again reassures Chairwoman Park that he will handle the situation, and they agree to send Wan-soo to Busan, planning to frame her affair with Doyun and ultimately destroy her image, forcing her to leave the foundation. After all, the chairman's 70th birthday is soon, which means that the reading of the will is coming. Unaware of the plot against them, Wan-soo and Doyun travel to Busan, sharing a quiet moment together by the sea. As they hug, So-dam takes photos of them. That night, as Doyun goes to do his security checks, So-dam enters their villa. Spotting her just as she is about to attack, Wan-soo screams as she tries to fight back, but So-dam comes at her with a knife. As Doyun runs back and starts fighting So-dam, whose face is again covered by a mask that Doyun tries to take off, Wan-soo runs and hides inside one of the boats that is harbored in front of the house. Hitting her head, Wan-soo faints as So-dam chases and tries to attack her. Doyun again arrives just in time, fighting So-dam off despite being hurt himself. Cutting So-dam's wrist and kicking her into the water, Doyun steers their boat out to sea. As the sun rises again after a long night, Yong-guk and Kyung-ju arrive at the house, only to find it in chaos with blood everywhere. Meanwhile, at sea, Doyun, having fainted from his injuries, wakes up and overcome with relief, kisses Wan-soo. Later, Wan-soo, still disoriented, wakes up at the house, clinging to Yong-guk, thinking he was Doyun. Yong-guk, suspicious and concerned, tries to get answers about what happened, but he keeps being distracted by how his wife steals glances at Doyun the whole day. Following Doyun's instructions, Wan-soo subtly asks Yong-guk about his family, particularly about how the chairman died and his relationship with Yong-min. Reading between the lines, it becomes obvious that Yong-min is Yong-guk's stepbrother, which is confirmed when Doyun, breaking into Mr. Han's safe again, finds documents revealing that Yong-min is actually Mr. Han's biological son. Meanwhile, furious that So-dam has again failed, Mr. Han threatens So-dam one more botched attempt and he'll send her right back to the 8-star gang that she came from. And after warning So-dam, Mr. Han leaks the photos that So-dam took of Wan-soo and Doyun, and the media go crazy. Yong-guk can't believe what he is seeing. His mom, the cheater, is trying to ruin Wan-soo's reputation. Going to confront Chairwoman Park, Yong-guk blames her for breaking him and making him unable to communicate his honest feelings to the woman that he loves. Tae-ra overhears this and knows that the woman that Yong-guk loves isn't her. Finally, Tae-ra packs her bags and leaves. There is no place for her at Hwain after all. The next day, Mr. Han goes to Hyun-soo and gets him released, at the same time revealing to him that Wan-soo was dating Doyun. Going to confront Doyun about this reported affair, Doyun stands up for Wan-soo, questioning her brother about why he isn't protecting Wan-soo and admitting that he loves Wan-soo. Doyun also tells Hyun-soo about how Mr. Han lied about the ledgers, which would, if leaked to the prosecution, actually expose Chairwoman Park, not Wan-soo or her brother. Later, Yong-guk, on his way back from threatening to kill Mr. Han or his son if either of them mess with Wan-soo, orders Doyun to be tied up. Grabbing a gun, Yong-guk demands that Do-yoon tell him everything. Looking into the barrel of the rifle, Do-yoon explains how he came to Hwain because of Ju-hyuk, etc. As Wan-soo arrives trying to protect Do-yoon, she steps in front of the gun and admits to her husband that she loves Do-yoon, but that he doesn't feel the same, which of course isn't true. Heartbroken, Yong-guk breaks down and Wan-soo hugs him. Finally, the day of the chairman's will reading has come. As the New York lawyers file in, the family is on the edge of their seats to find out who the chairman has left everything to. The first shock comes when the lawyer reads out that the chairman had a slush fund of 18 trillion won, much more than any of them expected. The family is even more dumbfounded to hear that not only does he have that much money, but he left it all to Wan-soo's foundation, backed by a clause that says that only Wan-soo herself can access the secret Swiss account. While Yong-guk and Wan-soo are in Switzerland verifying the money, back in Korea, Seo Do-yoon accidentally exposes herself to Doyun. Although she lies about her background as the days go by, Doyun only becomes more and more suspicious. Meanwhile, upstairs, nobody can agree on how to split the money. Yong-guk says that Wan-soo alone is allowed the money. The chairwoman wants the cash to be used to make Yong-guk the new chariman, and Yong-min wants it split 3 ways. Their argument takes a dark turn as Yong-guk boldly accuses Yong-min of being involved in the chairman's death, a claim that seems to catch Chairwoman Park off guard. Yong-min doesn't seem surprised. In a flashback, we see that it had actually been Yong-min who'd killed the chairman, hitting him with a gold bar, and finding his son at the scene of the crime. Mr. Han had helped cover for Yong-min. As for Wan-soo, Hyun-soo, and Doyun, they agree to give the ledgers back to Mr. Han. That night, Hyun-soo goes to meet with Mr. Han near the Han River Bridge, texting Doyun as he arrives. Spotting Seo Do-yoon leaving the house, Doyun follows her all the way to the Han River meeting spot. Watching the two men, Doyun records their conversation. Just then, as Hyun-soo hands over the ledger and starts walking back to his car, Seo Do-yoon appears, slitting his throat. Realizing there is nothing he can do to save Hyun-soo, Doyun follows Seo Do-yoon, stabbing her in the back before she manages to run away. At Hyun-soo's memorial, Doyun asks his widow to tell the prosecutors that the evidence that her late husband had collected is hidden in Mr. Han's private safe. That same day, Doyun sneaks, for one last time, into Mr. Han's room and slips a USB in the safe. Later, as the prosecutors handcuff her, Chairwoman Park is stunned to see Mr. Han sitting silently on the sidelines. He'd been the one who'd given the ledgers to the prosecutors the minute that Hyun-soo had handed them over. Meanwhile, watching as the prosecutors take everything out of Mr. Han's room, including his safe, Doyun spots Seo Do-yoon running away. Chasing after her, they get into another fight. However, this time Doyun is onto her and manages to catch Seo Do-yoon and hand her to the cops. With one last card up his sleeve, Mr. Han goes to visit Chairwoman Park at the prosecutor's office, and using the bloody gold bar, he blackmails her into taking the blame for him. Basically, Mr. Han tells Chairwoman Park that if she doesn't admit to trying to kill Wan-soo, he'll expose how Yong-min is their love child, and how Yong-min was the one who killed the chairman. Under pressure, Chairwoman Park reluctantly confesses to ordering the attempt on Wan-soo's life. As for Yong-min, storming into the house after Ji-hyun asks him for a divorce, he kicks all the servants out. Gun in hand, Yong-min goes to find Yong-guk. Seeing Yong-min with the gun, Mr. Han at first tries to stop him, but changes his mind when Yong-guk belittles Yong-min. He's had enough of this family treating him and Yong-min like they are beneath them. A fight breaks out, a gunshot sounds, and Yong-min kills Yong-guk. Rushing inside, Wan-soo holds Yong-guk as he dies while looking into her eyes. Although they might not have had a great marriage, there was real love between Wan-soo and Yong-guk. Despite Mr. Han wasting no time blaming Wan-soo for killing Yong-guk, when the police and Doyun show up, Yong-min is arrested, and Wan-soo is quickly found innocent. At the same time, Doyun uses the footage that he collected that day at the Han River Bridge of Mr. Han and Wan-soo's brother, as well as all the evidence in Mr. Han's safe, to prove to the police that Mr. Han is the one behind everything. In the end, Mr. Han is arrested and ends up in prison with his resentful son. As for Doyun and Wan-soo, Doyun resigns as Wan-soo's bodyguard and goes back to the police force, while Wan-soo pours the late chairman's money into the foundation. 1 year later, when Wan-soo comes back from Tanzania, she sees none other than Doyun waiting for her at the airport. He's joining as a volunteer. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.